Collingwood have certainly come across some curious cases when it comes to players being a one-season wonder. The famous Mark Orville springs to mind before he was struck down by injury. Then there's Tom Phillips in 2018/19, who was only later to be traded by Collingwood and delisted by the Hawks. And then all the way to someone like Chris Dawes, who had his best season in 2010 as a premiership player. But those players just mentioned, fortunately, don't make it into this highly not so coveted top 5. That top 5 comprising of Collingwood's greatest one-season wonders. Number 5, Brayden Sier, otherwise known as Bear for his rugged aggression within the confines of the contest, or perhaps better known as Fill In, once using that pseudonym to play midweek in basketball during the AFL season. Bear entered the greatest purple patch of his career late in the 2018 season, playing his first game of AFL footy in round 15 and all the way through to the final series. Fill-in would earn a solitary coach's vote in his first ever finals game, which was the qualifying final against West Coast, and then once again a few weeks later against West Coast. Bear was arguably one of Collingwood's best players afield, collecting 21 disposals, 7 clearances and 14 contested possessions. All this done in just a matter of 55% time on ground in that losing grand final. Bear was unable to build on that form shown in 2018 moving into 2019 and was rather subpar, playing just the 6 games, but it was just enough to earn another 2-year contract that saw him get to the end of that 2021 season, where he would finally meet his fate and be delisted by the Pies. It is a shame because Sier had some bruteness about him, but it has been publicised by Bear himself that he truly doesn't love AFL footy, or at least not enough to uphold the commitment and dedication required to tap into the utmost of his potential. Brayden Sier now plies his trade for the Heidelberg Tigers, and you know what, sometimes AFL just isn't the be-all end-all for all aspiring athletes. Number 4, Brad Dick. Taken at pick 44 in the 2006 draft alongside the likes of Ben Reid, Chris Dawes, Nathan Brown and Goldsack. It was a true masterclass draft in retrospect for the Pies. Now this one is a sensitive subject given the nature of Brad's downfall at Collingwood, predominantly being hampered by a bunch of long-term injuries. Those including 2 knee reconstructions and 2 shoulder reconstructions. Brad took some time to acclimatise to the AFL rigors as he came in severely undersized. Although, in Dick's debut game, which was against the Tigers, he managed to collect 11 touches and 2 goals in a winning performance. Brad managed to play 7 games in his first season, which would serve as an integral part of building on his career in the following year. Promising signs, right? Well, enter Brad's first knee reconstruction, which saw him miss the entirety of that 2008 season, and admittedly so, Brad noted to struggle with homesickness and the passing of one of his cousins. It was nearly enough for Brad to move back home, however that did not transpire as his immediate family decided to move to Melbourne to support Brad during these tough times. 2009 was a year for Brad where he could seek vengeance for his misfortunes with his knee injury. Brad would go on to play on 16 games, kicking 22 goals. And his highlight game would be on Queen's birthday against the D's, where he would collect 16 touches and 5 goals, which would grant him a much-deserved singular Brownlow vote to take to the bank. Brad would also play a monumental role in the swing of things during the semi-final against the Crows in 2009, where the Pies end up winning a thriller. Pies down by 4 goals in the third quarter. Brad Dick would kick 2 goals in that term, one to get the ball rolling and one to end the quarter, which would see the conclusion of a 38-2 third quarter term in favour of the Pies. The game was eventually won by another Collingwood player who happens to feature later in this video. Stick around and find out who that is. Unfortunately, in 2010, Brad Dick would once again succumb to shoulder issues and did not see the field until the Queen's birthday clash, being a late inclusion for Alan Didak. He went on to kick 4 goals in a tantalising draw, which hopefully would be the beginning of continuity for him. However, once again, his season was derailed by his lax shoulder, which needed surgery and inevitably drawing a close to another premature season for Brad. Brad Dick missing the 2010 premiership was one of many heartbreaks that got us to the grand prize in the end. Perhaps another video for another day. In a VFL game against Casey during the early parts of 2011, it would mark the final nail in the coffin for Brad. His second ACL injury inflicted upon him. Brad Dick was delisted by the Pies at the end of 2011 and was asked to come back for the preseason in a bid to earn a rookie spot on the list. However, Brad would alternatively opt to return home to WA and try his luck at the Eagles for a couple of seasons, which saw him play 22 games in the Waffle for East Fremantle and 0 games in the AFL. The end. Number 3, Adam Oxley. After being overlooked in previous drafts, Adam Oxley was taken at pick 35 in the 2013 rookie draft. Oxley experienced an endless list of injuries that continually plagued his career, starting with season 2014, Being his second season in the AFL, he would find himself left without a single game on the field due to a nagging ankle injury. Fortunately, Ox was able to bounce back in a big way and announce himself to the AFL world in just his fourth AFL game against the Crows. Ox collected 33 touches and had 12 rebound 50s, more than any Collingwood player of the last decade at that time. The Pies felt as though in a time of scarce and injuries in the Pies backline, Ox was considered a beacon of hope within a deep abyss. 3 rounds later against our arch rivals, the Blues, Ox would pick up another 26 touches, 9 inside 50s and a goal, notching up his first and only pair of Brownlow votes to his name. The Queen's birthday clash would put an exclamation point to Ox's season thus far, collecting 30 touches and a career high 8 intercept marks, along with 7 coaches' votes. Adam Oxley finished the year averaging 18.5 touches per game, 4.3 intercept possessions, and 3.5 score involvements. All career highs and extremely promising numbers in what was essentially his maiden year in the black and white. After 12 games in 2016, Ox was unable to recapture his form from 2015, where he would find himself stuck in the VFL for the remainder of the season. And in 2017, he was struck by recurring hip and groin issues, and by the end of the season, he was delisted with the intention of being picked up in the rookie draft, which was promised and followed upon on. But in 2018, Ox would only see the AFL field 3 times, and it was ultimately his last 3 AFL games of his career, playing his final game at the young age of 25. Number 2, Jack Anthony. Initially drafted by the Pies with pick 37 in 2005, which was a year where we were afforded a compensation pick that led to Pendlebury at pick 5, while also picking Dale Thomas at pick 2. JA was touted to potentially fit the role of that second to third key tall forward, as Jack was forced to bide his time and hone in on his craft in his first couple years at the helm. And after waiting patiently and also overcoming a spinal cord injury in a clash with Martin Clark, Jack would flourish in what at the time seemed to be his formative years. In 2008, Jack would play 12 AFL games and kick 25 goals while almost averaging a goal assist a game. In just Jack's 4th AFL game, he would kick a bag of 4 against North Melbourne, which essentially set the tone for the remainder of 2008 and wouldn't miss any more games, riding through all the way to the end of the Pies season, which was culled in a semi-final against the Saints. Jack wasted no time and asserted himself in 2009, which would ultimately be his greatest season in his very short career. Jack managed to kick 4 goals 5 times in 2009, and the cherry on top, JA finds himself in the most cliche moments of history you could possibly imagine in the context of sports. He found himself lining up for a shot within 30 seconds to go of the semi-final against Adelaide. Why is this so cliche? Well, he only had 3 touches and 2 behinds leading up to this moment, and that just screams out to me, it might not be your game, but this sure as hell could be your moment. 2010 was a demise into a precarious slide that whispers one season wonder. Jack was dropped a few times in 2010 and only managed to score 5 goals in 7 games, an utter divergence from his 50-goal season in 2009. Unfortunately, this story just doesn't get any better. The Pies end up winning that flag in 2010 with JA watching from the sidelines. Yes, sport is brutal and unrelenting and does not discriminate. Jack's delisting would supervene in the off-season and Freo would give him a shot for a couple of years. However, to no avail, he only plays 6 games, kicks 1 goal, and Jack would finish his career with 83 goals and 51 games. On a side note, Jack was a bloke with some fascinating quirks, once arriving to Paul the Curious church wedding service to wish him all the best, despite the fact he wasn't invited to the reception. Number 1, Jaden Stevenson. To this day, the way Steve-O's career has progressed in age but regressed in performance will be one of the most perplexing cases to make sense of when it's all said and done. Steve-O was met with apprehension in his draft year due to a genetic heart condition. Had it not been for other clubs allowing Steve-O to slide in the draft, maybe the Pies wouldn't have been so lucky in picking what initially felt like an absolute steal. Steve-O ended up being taken at pick 7 for the Pies, and it didn't take him long to announce himself to the rest of the league. Steve-O had a career-type game in round 4 against the Crows in Adelaide, a team that were coming off the back of a grand final appearance against the Tigers. Steve-O had 13 touches, kicked 5 goals, and to this day is his highest rated game of his career. Steve-O would be instrumental in the Pies' surprising come up throughout 2018, which led to a shocking grand final appearance considering the Pies placed 13th in season 2017. Despite the losing grand final, Steve-O kicked 2 of his own in that game against the Eagles and would finish with 38 goals and 24 behinds for the year, a tally he hasn't been able to eclipse since that year. While 2019 was still statistically as good as 2018 for Steve-O, a betting scandal would cloud over his on-field performances. 2020 was where we would see a drastic fall off from Stevo, and amidst salary cap issues, Stevo was subsequently sent off to North Melbourne. Ironically, North were keen on Stevo in the 2017 draft with their pick 4, and Stevo hasn't been horrible at North and probably fits the caper of being a fringe AFL player at this point of his career, rather than just being touted as a player with X factor who had potential to bag 50-goal seasons. Yes, Stevo is still only 25 and in the system, but we always wonder if he can find the form of 2018/2019. As always, thanks for watching. Go Pies.